Hi everyone and welcome back. So we are still continuing with graphing lines, but now I am introducing to you a new way to graph lines, a new formula and equation that we can use to graph equations of a line. And it's called point-slope form. And it's exactly as it sounds. All you need is a point and the slope to graph the line. So again, I'll just reiterate that. All you need is a point and the slope to graph the equation of the line. So this is different from y equals mx plus b form. So the equation for point slope is the following. We have y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, where x1 and y1 are the points on the line, and m represents the slope. So when will it be appropriate for us to use this equation? When we have the slope and a point on the line. So if I were to give you, for example, graph the following: y minus 5 equals 2 times x plus 3. Graph that. Do not do anything with it. Don't get it into y equals mx plus b form. Graph that as is. Now, again, we need to be able to recognize that this is in point-slope form. We are not doing a whole bunch of algebra and getting it into y equals mx plus b. We're not going to do that. That's more work. So, using our equation of the line here for point slope, well, let's identify. This follows the exact same format here, right? Where my y1 is 5. So I'm going to write that down. My y1 is equal to 5. And let's see, my slope here is 2. So my slope is 2. And now notice here that this says x minus x1, but I have x plus 3. Because guys, really, I could have rewritten this if I want to write it out. This is really x minus minus 3, right? Because isn't a double negative a positive? So now that this is in the same form as what's here, that x minus x1, right? Well, we have x minus, and my x1 is this negative 3. So x1 is negative 3. So there we go. I have my point. So my point is negative 3, because that's my x1, comma 5, because that's my y1. And my slope is 2. I can now graph this line with just this information. So let's do it. So I'm going to start with the point at negative 3, 5. So let's go over negative 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's my point, negative 3, 5. And from that point, I'm going to graph the slope, which is rise 2 over 1. Rise 2 over 1. And that's it, guys. So we were able to graph this line without using slope-intercept form. We used point-slope form of a line. So again, I would write the equation out. It's literally y minus 5 equals 2 times x. And now we had this written as originally x plus 3. And that's your equation. Done. That's it. Okay, let's take a look at an example. For question 1 here, we have what is the equation of the line that passes through the point 3, 2 and has a slope of negative 3. So again, I have a point and I have a slope. You should not be thinking y equals mx plus b. Not. Because that requires a slope and a y-intercept. I have a slope and a point. That's not this equation. So we should be thinking point-slope form, which is again y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, where x1, comma y1 is on the line. It's a point on the line, and m is just our slope. So let's fill it in. I have y minus, well, here's my y1, minus 2 equals, right, because we're filling in for that y1, equals m, and my m value here is negative 3 times x minus x1 goes here, filling in for the x1, and my x value is 3. So there's my equation. I have y plus 2, because, right, this is a double negative, is equal to negative 3 times x minus 3. That's it. That's your equation of the line in point-slope form. You don't have to do anything else. So now I'm actually going to graph this. We have the point 3, negative 2. So I'm going to come over to the point 3, negative 2. And the slope is negative 3 over 1. So I'm going to go down 3, right 1, down 3, right 1, up 3, left 1, etc. All right, guys, that's all we had to do. And that's your equation of the line in point slope form. Alrighty, don't need to do anything else. Let's keep going. For question 2, we have what is the equation of the line that passes through the point 4, 0 and is parallel with a slope of a half. So now we're parallel, and I have a slope of 1/2, and I want to run through this point. So again, I have a point, and I have a slope. Should you be thinking y equals mx plus b? No, we should not be using this equation because I have no y-intercept. I give you the slope, and I give you a point. So yes, you have the slope here, but I don't know what b is. So we don't use this equation. So we are going to use point slope form because we have a point and I have the slope. Again, our equation is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. I'm actually going to box these because these are the things that we fill in. Okay, so we have the point. So there's my x1 and there's my y1. So my x1 is 4, my y1 is 0, and my slope is 1/2. So let's see. Try to erase that. My slope is 1/2. All right, so let's start to fill it in. We have y minus, y1 is 0, which is equal to m, which is 1/2, times x minus x1 is 4. And guys, that's it. That's your equation of the line. If you want to simplify this, y minus 0 is just y. And I have 1/2 x minus 4, and this is in parentheses. That's it. That's your equation of the line. So now if I were to come over here and graph this, remember we start off with the point. So my point is at 4, 0, and then we include the slope of 1/2. But now, just remember, we need it to be parallel. We want to know the equation of a line that's parallel. And remembering that parallel means it has the same slope. So first I'm going to start to graph the line that we have here. So start off with the point at 4, 0, and my slope is up 1 over 2, rise over run. So I'm just going to graph this first. Okay, and there's my equation of the line, which is parallel with a slope of 1/2, right? So let's see. We write an equation of the line that passes through the point 4, 0 and is parallel with the slope. So I could have written in any other equation that would have been parallel. I could have started at the origin and included the same slope of 1/2, where I'd go up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. And these would still be parallel because they have the exact same slope. And connect them with a nice straight line. So this would be the equation y equals 1/2 x, just because I kept it at the origin. So these two equations would be parallel to each other, but really this is our solution because I wanted to know that it ran through this point 4, 0. But I'm just giving an example here. All right, let's take a look at question 3. So we want to know what is the equation of a line that passes through the point 17, 19 and is perpendicular to a line with a slope of 4. So we want to be perpendicular. Alrighty. Well, let's see. So the equation of the line, so again, I have a point We want it to be perpendicular. So remember our symbol, that upside down T. And it has to have a slope of 4. So we're going to use point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, where x1, y1 is the point on the line, and the slope is m. Okay, well, let's see what we got. So I'm going to start to fill in. We have y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Remember, those are the fill in the blank pieces. So let's start with the point. So my point here, I have 17, that's my x1, and 19 is my y1. So I have y minus 19 is equal to the slope, so let's fill that in a second, times x minus, there's my x1 of 17. Now, the reason why I said to pause for the slope is because I want it to be perpendicular to the slope of 4. So I want this line to be perpendicular to the slope of 4. Well, if my slope right now is 4, the slope perpendicular, remember, we flip and negate. So really this is 4 over 1. I can rewrite that as 1 over 4, right? We flip and negate. So this is actually the slope I'm going to use. That's my answer. So if I were to write out my final answer here, we would have y minus 19 is equal to negative 1/4 times x minus 17. And that's it. That's your equation of the line in point slope form. Alrighty, guys, I would like you to do questions 4 and 5 on your own, and you're going to check your solutions with mine. So do 4 and 5 on your own and check your solutions with mine. Alrighty, so I did most of question 4 for us. So we know that this is in point slope form. So I identified what the point was and the slope. So after going through some evaluation here, I found y1 to be 3, x1 to be 7, and the slope to be 3. So that tells me that my point is 7, 3, which I drew here. 7, 3, that's the point here. And I continue to do it with my slope of up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1. But now the question wants to know, what is the y-intercept? Well, to find the y-intercept, do you guys remember how to find y-intercept? We did this earlier in the year. What has to equal 0 to find the y-intercept? X. We have to set x equal to 0. So what we're going to do, and I'm going to erase what I have here since you've already seen that, and hopefully you can always rewind as well. I'm going to set x equal to 0. So if I have y minus 3 equals 3 times 0 minus 7, I'm going to be able to find the y-intercept. So I have y minus 3 equals 3 times negative 7. I have y minus 3 equals negative 21. Add the 3 to both sides. And I have y equals negative 18. So that's actually my y-intercept. So I'm actually going to write here b, because that's the y-intercept, but really we represent the y-intercept as b. So b equals negative 18. Now this is just one way to find the y-intercept, is by setting x equal to 0. So by setting x equal to 0, we found the y-intercept. Another way we could have done this, and I'm going to show you that solution in question 5, is by getting this into y equals mx plus b form. Because if we get this into y equals mx plus b form, remember b is your y-intercept. So there's two ways to have done it. You can either set x equal to 0 and find the y-intercept, or you can get it in this form and find b. So I'm going to do that for question 5. So pause the video here and see if you can try it that way. Get it into y equals mx plus b form. Alrighty, and here is my solution for question 5. So we want to know what the y-intercept and slope is for the following equation. So I found that if I write this in y equals mx plus b form, it will be very easy for me to identify the slope as well as the y-intercept. By distributing here, right, 2/3 times x and then 2/3 times 0, this is really just nothing. 2/3 times 0 is just 0. So now I'm left with y plus 3 equals 2/3 x. I subtracted the 3 on both sides, and I ended up with this equation, leading me to know that the y-intercept is negative 3, and then the slope, remember the slope is the number out front of x, The slope is 2/3. So these are my two key pieces of information that the question asked for. In addition, I also just graphed it where I started at my y-intercept of -3, and my slope is 2/3, which is rise over run. Rise 2, run 3. All right, guys, I hope you found this video helpful. Again, just showing you a new way to graph equations of lines. It's going to be super helpful for you guys when you go into geometry. All right, I'll talk to you all soon.